So when you decide to volunteer with us, you become a volunteer crewmate, and you're going to sign up on our platform.
There's going to be a lot of ship-themed things as we go through, isn't it?
Yes, everything's pirate-themed. Some people love it, and some people find it strange, but we all get used to it eventually.
Oh, they can just walk the plank.
Yes, exactly.
That was Angele Tilly, the volunteer manager at Literacy Pirates. At Literacy Pirates, the mission is clear: to empower children aged 9 to 12 to navigate the seas of literacy with confidence and enthusiasm. Through after-school programs, led by passionate teachers, supported by trained volunteers, the Literacy Pirates offers personalised attention to help children unfurl their sails and chart towards a course towards academic success. Through Angele's leadership, volunteers play a crucial role in supporting young pirates to develop essential reading and writing skills, fostering confidence, perseverance, and a love for learning along the way. Volunteers at the Literacy Pirates receive comprehensive training, gain valuable skills and experiences, and most importantly, they have fun while making meaningful impact to the lives of young learners. Stay tuned as Angele takes us behind the scenes of this fantastic journey, where every volunteer becomes a vital member of the crew, helping children chart a course towards a brighter future, one page at a time. Welcome to the Engaged Volunteer podcast. I'm Martin O'Neill, Head of Marketing at Rosterify. And today I've got Angele Tilly, Volunteer Manager at Literacy Pirates with me. Angele, are you impressed with my French pronunciation?
Very impressed.
Thank you very much for joining us today. The reason why we've got you on, there's two reasons why we've got you on. You've got some really interesting things to say about the volunteering sector and volunteer management in general. Plus, your charity is genuinely brilliant. And I cannot go anywhere in London without seeing some sort of out-of-home advertising for it. I've seen bus stop posters. I've seen an awful lot of you guys. And even yesterday, you visited the House of Lords, which is, well, you tell me, that sounds like a tremendous honour, right?
It was really amazing to be there and to have the opportunity to talk about what we do in this environment of the House of Lords. Yeah, it was impressive. I was very impressed. I tried to stay professional and not look too impressed, but it was quite hard.
Yeah, I bet. I think I'd find it very hard to hold my cool with something like that. But
by the end, I took a lot of photos.
Did you guys arrange the day? Is that a Literacy Pirates event?
It was. So every year we host a major donor event where we invite people who support us, and when we talk about what we've done this year and what we're going to do next. And this year we were very lucky to be invited in the House of Lords. Let's
take it to the start. Let's talk a little bit about Literacy Pirates. So tell me what Literacy Pirates is about and who they help. Yeah, take it away. You've got a great story to tell here.
Yes. So we are a charity based in East London, and it was founded by Katrina, who was a teacher in Hackney, and she knew what supports the children had at school and the lack of one-to-one support for some of the children who were falling behind a bit with their reading and writing, but didn't have enough capacity at school to really help them as much as they could. So she decided with a few teacher friends to create this one-off holiday workshop for children and made it pirate themed because that's fun for the kids, and that was the idea, is to make it fun so that the children would want to join. And it worked really well, and she managed to get loads of volunteers as well engaged, and she decided to keep it as a permanent thing, so she created the charity. And initially it was just in Hackney, and then just before lockdown we opened a second ship in Haringey, and then lockdown happened. So we went online, and actually that worked really well. So well that we decided to make it a permanent third ship. So it's the virtual ship.
Right, okay. The digital ship is out there.
The digital ship, exactly. So we have Hackney, Haringey, the virtual ship.
That's interesting that a new way of working came out. And we see that a lot, right, in most industries, that post-COVID, people discovered new ways. I think what's interesting there is that there may have been a whole group of volunteers that maybe didn't have access to Haringey, Hackney, all the places that you could want them to go to, but from offering a digital solution, you're now able to engage with even more volunteers and perhaps even reach kids as well that maybe you wouldn't have been able to before?
Yes, so initially when we had only physical in-person programs, we reached out to children in Hackney and Haringey because that's where the schools were and you had to travel from the school to the location. But yes, we have extended that reach beyond Hackney and Haringey because the virtual program, you don't have to be anywhere specific. So currently it's London. We have worked with Lambeth and Newham, and I can't remember on top of my head all the boroughs where we work in, but we are looking to expand beyond London as well.
So what does a typical volunteering experience look like with Literacy Pirates?
So when you decide to volunteer with us, you become a volunteer crewmate and you're going to sign up on our platform.
There's going to be a lot of ship-themed things as we go through, isn't it?
Yes, everything's pirate-themed. Some people love it and some people find it strange, but we all get used to it eventually.
Oh, they can just walk the plank.
Yes, exactly. So once you sign up, you actually access your crew log, which is our virtual volunteer portal. And then you will go through trainings and criminal background checks. And then you'll be meeting the volunteer team for your welcome meeting, which is also done online. And once you've done all those things, you can become an actual volunteer in the sessions. And then you'll decide if you want to join the virtual program or the in-person or a combination of both.
And what does a session look like? What do you do there?
In session, volunteers arrive before the children, so the young parrots. Volunteers arrive before the young parrots and they get a briefing from the session leader, so it's equivalent to a teacher, who's going to say what's going to happen today, which young parrots they're going to be paired with, and then the young parrots join and we play a game. We play loads of games and the volunteers are more than encouraged to join in, although they don't have to if they don't want to. And after we've played a game, it's the first part of the session, which is reading. So we all read together a shared text and the volunteers will be paired with 1 or 2, maybe 3 young parrots and be reading together for about half an hour.
So tell me about these kids, like what backgrounds are they coming from? And tell me a little bit about that.
The children are referred by their school. So we approach schools and we tell them that we are looking to reach out to children who are falling a little bit behind with their reading and writing, but also the one who are lacking in confidence. And when we see that boost in confidence could help them make significant progress. And the schools know their kids best. So that's why we are reaching out to school, and then the schools will refer us to the children and their parents, and then the parents and children will make the decision to join the program.
Yeah, so I presume you're going to have really strong relationships with the schools that are around then
absolutely.
as well. So who within Literacy Pirates is sort of tasked with that as well? Is that part of the volunteer coordination team, or is that something else?
We have a person dedicated to working with the schools, and it's a whole role in itself.
Yeah.
A person and a half. So there's this person who manages the school relationship and someone who does some admin and this as well.
Yeah.
So it has become a whole thing. It used to be part of someone else's job, and then we realized we actually need a full-time person who's just managing those relationships. So it's quite interesting.
Where do you fit in with this then? What's your role?
So I'm managing the volunteer team, and my role with my team is to recruit volunteers. So the program works really well because children get 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 attention, which they don't have at school. And that one-on-one adult attention is what makes a big difference to the children, and that's why we need volunteers.
Yeah.
And that's why we recruit volunteers and we try to get as much as we can get.
Yeah. Because not every home has an environment where kids are encouraged to read as well, which
absolutely
obviously
it could be also that at home English is not the first language spoken, so reading text in English is not necessarily easy, or it could be that home is a busy environment as well. So yes, that's why going to the Young Parrots ship, whether it's in person or even the virtual one, give the space for those children to really read on their own, but enjoy it. We're less interested in perfect reading and perfect grammar. We're more interested in everyone's a writer and reading for pleasure pedagogy. That's our big focus.
Do you get involved too, with the sessions, or are you kind of more facilitating in the background, or?
Yes, I'm more in the background. I have worked very closely with the education team, so the people who actually build the program and deliver it, because our volunteers need to know what to do in session, and they need to have, safeguarding trainings as well. We work with young people, so of course there's all this layer of safeguarding. So my team and myself are very involved with the education team, but we are less focused on what's happening in session and more focused on getting the volunteers in, getting them trained and ready to go, and then just making sure they're having a good time as well.
Well, one of the things, you're going to be modest about what I'm about to say, but one of the things that I'm really impressed with Literacy Pirates is the attention to detail that you guys have around data, around the efficiency of your volunteer program. I spoke to you a little bit before we did this recording because I'm really impressed with this, and I know you don't necessarily have the numbers to hand, but the conversion metrics around, how many people go from interested to involved. Can you tell me a little bit about why that's so important and sort of address that?
So we do a strategy every year where we are planning what we're going to get and how many volunteers we need and what we're going to put in place. And last year we focused on getting people through, signing up on the website and getting people in session. So we have a differentiation between who is a volunteer who's going currently through the pipelines, doing trainings, doing criminal background check. And then once they are ready to be in session, they are in a different category. So we have volunteers in the pipeline and active volunteers who are actually in sessions. And we had a focus on both numbers. We wanted to reach X amount per month in the pipeline and X amount per month active. And for this coming year, the strategy is going to shift to mostly active. That's the number we need, because we realized that having a lot of volunteers signed up to a training is not always translating into who's going to be in session. And that we have found that because of all the data we collect, because we've been able to see where they are in their journey, what point they stop, what point is a difficult one to get people to continue. We used to have a 3 hours training broken in half, so 1 hour and a half, 1 hour and a half. And it was starting with the safeguarding bit. And it's extremely important, but it's not the fun bit. That's not why people come. So when we were able to say, okay, looking at our data, at that point, volunteers kind of stop. They slow down here. We decided to change the way we do our training, and we've broken it down into 3 parts. One is self-served at the beginning, which is about the literacy pirates, who we are, what you do as a volunteer, who the young pirates are, what our program is all about. So that's the interesting bit. That's why you're here. Then we get the second part, which is a live online training, which is all about how to support young pirates in session, how to help them reading and writing. And that also kind of gets you like, oh, I really want to get stuck in now. And then we finish with safeguarding, because it is still very important. But we do it at the end, because by then, hopefully, we've hooked you.
You've seen enough, right? Like, save your vegetables to the end.
Exactly. So by then, you want to be a crewmate, and you want to help the young pirates, and you want to be part of the crew.
So, and you discovered that by looking at almost like, I think of it a bit like a sales funnel, right?
Absolutely.
Where leads are coming in, and how many of those leads turn into nothing at all, and others that turn into conversations.
Absolutely.
You're almost taking a sales strategy approach to that.
It's funny that you say that, because that was from a conversation I had with our comms manager, who is also looking after our marketing. And she was suggesting, that the interesting part is actually who we are and why we help the kids. If you give that to volunteers first, they'll be hooked a bit quicker. And Rustify allowed us to do some of that training like self-served, which we didn't have before. So we also used that as actually, it's easier for you to fit in your timetable in your busy life to do this training whenever you can on your phone or on your laptop, and then do the only one live training, which is a lot easier to fit than 3 hours live training.
Yeah, and that's integrated into the steps that they take on Rustify, right? They use your portal, they find an opportunity, and then they're taken through those steps. They get all of the nice messages and selling the program really to them, and then there you go. Now do your compliance
now
side
do your
of it.
safeguarding, your criminal background check,
which is very important, especially when you're working with children. And you guys do some great stuff around that, which presents challenges in itself. You were telling me before about the DBS checks and that it may not be the same globally, but certainly in the UK, if you need a DBS check, there's a charge that's associated with the organisation that is running that check. So for you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but for you guys, every volunteer that applies, you go through a screening process and then there'll be a DBS check.
A DBS check or a PVG if they live in Scotland, which is the equivalent to a DBS.
But you're paying for that effectively, right?
Do,
yeah. How far do they get through that funnel before you get to the part where you have to fork out £18, £20 or whatever for that?
Quite close to the end. It's the second to last step, because the next step involves discussing with the volunteers. So we do make a point to talk to everyone, even though it's all online and so remote. We still want to make sure we talk to everyone, and we also might be needing to check their documents. So for the DBS, so that's also why it's not the last step, because we might need to check their DBS.
Well, I imagine that helps too, though, right? Because you've got engagement there too. At the moment, up until that point, they've probably seen some nice videos, some good marketing material, but they, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak out of turn, but they probably haven't seen you guys really until they get to
one of our training, the live online training, they will have seen us, but it's a group training, so it's not a one-on-one. We don't always talk to all of them in the training. Like, we talk to them, but they don't always.
I get it. Yeah. It's a classroom, right?
Exactly.
Like that's
So no, until that point, they haven't had a proper conversation with us, and it's also a point where they can ask more questions if something wasn't clear, and that kind of reassure them as well. Like, we have a lot of volunteers who ask, like, but how is it going to be in my first session? Where do I go, and what can I expect? And that's where we can, explain the fine details, and we also use that as another data collection point, to be honest, because we do a lot of that. But more like the informal one. How did you find the training? Where did you find about us?
Continual improvement, just refining each step. Like,
and then we had great feedback from that helped us change our training a little bit. And actually we realized that we talked not a lot about what to actually expect on the first day technically. Like, where do you go? What link do you click on? Where are you going to find that link? So we decided to add that to our training. And
what happens if you drop that out is you get dropouts and you get people no showing and you get less engagement. And just looping back round to that DBS point, you're paying for everybody that gets to that point. So every pound or dollar spent on a DBS check or a security check where you as a volunteering program isn't ensuring they get to the end and actually going from, I like to say, sort of interested to involved, well, really, that's coming out of the fundraising money.
It is.
Somebody donated that money and it went to a DBS check for somebody that didn't actually start.
Potentially.
That's painful, right? That's almost difficult even to say, right? Because you don't want to say it, but it's true though.
It is.
But you guys do a great job in making sure that they're engaged at the start, that they're working their way through lots of marketing material, selling the program, understanding the impact that the volunteer has made, doing virtual sessions. So right at the very end, when you do the check, I've already been through so much easily, not obstacles, because we want to make sure that it's a frictionless experience. Was that one of the reasons that you brought Rostify in, to streamline that process?
Yes, absolutely. To streamline for the volunteers, but also for the team, because the easier it is for volunteers to book the trainings, to know also what's to expect in their journey, how many steps they're going to have to go through before they can actually be in session. So all of this is visual, is easy to see on their portal. So that was a very big factor for us. But equally, it's all the automation at the back end, all the list we can look at, and it's really easy to say, oh, this has changed. Let me quickly go into Rostify and change that link for our volunteers joining the session. So it was partly for our volunteers to make it easy for them, but also for us. Because more volunteers means more admin. And the amount of automation we've put in place has saved us so much time, which means that we have more time to actually talk to our volunteers and have that meaningful connection. And we can leave the admin bits that can be automated to Rostify. So we have more time to really have this connection and make sure our volunteers have everything they need.
And ultimately I was going to talk to you a little bit about the challenges. We'll get to the challenges of volunteering and just volunteer management soon from your perspective. But one thing that I hear time and time again is you guys could do so much if you weren't tied up with the admin. And it's more than just having a digital process for something. It's about having steps built into the volunteer program that matches what you want to get out of it. You've got certain steps. You want marketing material or videos and training drip fed through the process. And look, I believe if more people, more organizations were doing what Literacy Pirates are doing, which is reviewing the data, seeing the weaknesses, finding where the massive gains are being had, and then leveraging that to make a more impactful volunteer program, I think we'd have way more time spent on the things that make a big difference. So you guys do a great job there. Sorry, I'm embarrassing you now.
Thank you very much.
So I want to talk a little bit about your background and how you got there. Clearly, you love what you do. That really does come through. You're very passionate about the cause and the projects that you work on. I just want to sort of fill in the gap, really. So if you can't tell already from your accent...
I am French.
You are French. So tell me a little bit about your journey arriving Literacy Pirates, really. And what do you think has brought you here? And what is it that you think about your personality and your skills that you've brought to the table for Literacy Pirates? And that's what I want to know.
When I moved to the UK, I didn't know many people. I didn't have many contacts. Didn't even speak English very well. I found a job and I was looking for something to do that was a bit more meaningful. And I was also very interested in feminist activism at that point. So I decided to volunteer with the Feminist Library, which used to be in Southwark, not very far from here. And I would go there once a week for a bit and what they call a general volunteer, which is basically just welcoming the visitors to the library. And I was a bit bored because there was not a lot to do, because there was not a lot of visitors, and even when they were there, they need a lot of support. But I was also there at the same time as volunteer manager back then, and I was asking her, please give me something to do. I am bored and I don't like it. And so I started helping her, emailing volunteers, organizing things, and I enjoyed it. And then she moved on from her role. She was a volunteer manager. So I asked, I'd like to do that, replace her as volunteer manager at the Feminist Library. And I got that position, again, as a volunteer at that point. And it was great, and I loved it. And I thought, you know what, that would be something I would enjoy doing as a career. So I did that for about a year and something. Eventually, I went freelance with them. I was working with them once a week as volunteer manager because they really had a need for that. And that really solidified the idea that I want to do that. Like, I like working with volunteers. I like the idea of supporting an organization to get people who are so interested that they are willing to give their time for that organization.
Were you involved in anything, like, before you came to the UK? And your career in France and what you studied, was there any signs in what you were doing where you grew up and what you were doing that has meant that you've naturally fitted in here? Why do you think that has happened? And I know everybody's journey is different, but I'm always curious to know how people end up at certain charities. Maybe it's something to do with their heart. Maybe they're connected to a particular cause because of someone in their families maybe, is affected by that particular cause or whatever it is. What do you think that you've ended up on the road that you're on?
In charities, because I have worked in many different places, I had loads of jobs when I was in France, very often entry-level jobs, moving from one place to another because I didn't really find something that I liked. But when I started being involved with charity, I kind of clicked that I don't want to work for a company whose main goal is to make profit. That does not fit well with the person I am. I did not like that at all. And that's why when I discovered charity works and you can actually have an income on helping people or promoting the cause or working on something that you actually care about. And that was a turning point for us. Never again. I don't think I will be able to work outside of the charity sector for a bit. And I didn't have that experience in France. I never worked with charities in France. I did it here because it was kind of like, I don't know anyone. I want to meet people. Volunteering is a great way to do that. I'm also interested in feminism as my personal, reading and things I'm interested in. So just an entry point to that. But I didn't think that it would lead to a career.
Yeah, it's a great gateway into a community, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like-minded people, passionate. It's quite easy to surround yourself with people that are similar to you when you go for something like that. I suppose if you're chasing the money and
Yes.
going to a corporate entity, maybe your motivations are very, very different. And how much stock you put into the wealth that you're building around you is probably more to do with your home life than it is to do holistically, the whole, everything about you, your career, plus where you go home to as well.
Yes.
Literacy pirates then. So you've got it in you to do something bigger than just make other people more wealthy. You've come over to the UK.
Yes.
You've started to get involved in communities, feminist movements and communities. How did you end up where you are at Literacy Pirates? How did that come about?
So when I decided the kind of career I want to have, I looked for volunteer coordinator roles because that's the entry point to volunteer manager. And I found the charity I worked for 4 years, which is Career Ready. And it's a social mobility charity. So they support young people 16 to 18 with access to the world of work, giving them mentors from the world of work, internships and things like that. And this idea of social mobility, I hated school when I was at school. And I didn't get anyone who would just sit down with me and talk to me about my potential future.
Yeah.
And if you don't have around you people who have been to university, you might not believe it is for you. If you don't have around you people who work in an office, you might not believe you can have that type of job.
Yeah.
And that's why I was attracted to Career Ready, because it's breaking those barriers. And social mobility is something that I really think is important and would make a change eventually. It's taking care of the young people today so that in the future we don't repeat the same patterns.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I really could. We work with a few charities. There's one in particular that I just love called London Youth Games.
Yes.
And are you aware of them? Yeah. And they do some brilliant work around engaging young people and giving them the belief that they can do more than they think. And I think whether it's encouraging them to take up rowing or swimming or reading. I don't think it matters.
No, exactly.
They just need people in their lives that say, try.
Yes.
Because you can do this.
Yeah, exactly. Not being limited by where you're from or who you have around you. That doesn't mean you can't do other things. That doesn't mean you can't have dreams, And it's just reaching out for a little bit more than what your circumstances are showing you.
So in your role, what do you feel are the sort of major challenges in volunteer management at the moment? And I know that you obviously can speak with a great deal of authority over your own particular charity and demographic, but if you wouldn't mind explaining to me maybe a little bit more broadly, like what do you think is out there at the moment in terms of like volunteer management challenges and just the world at the moment and volunteering, what are the issues? And
I think there has been a shift recently, or maybe it's because I'm more involved in volunteer management sector networks, but I feel like volunteers were very often seen by charity as a nice to have, as something that someone else can do. So you have your day job, plus maybe you're going to contact the volunteers, not as a resource and a value for the charity. And that has been my battle since I started working as a volunteer coordinator and then volunteer manager, is to help the charity understand, actually, if you don't have money, you can't function. But if you don't have volunteer, you can't function either. And that is people who have a full life, a job, families, commitment, maybe personal issues, and they are still coming to you and giving their time because they believe that what you do is very important. And seeing that as a nice to have rather than a value breaks my heart.
Yeah. How do you get that point across? Like, how do you explain there's more to it than that?
It depends who you talk to, but I mean, data is always a good one.
Yes.
The impact that your program has, and show that what happened when your program is delivered by and with volunteers and when it's not. And for example, at Literacy Pirates, we have very clear data that the volunteers make a difference. And when we have more volunteers in session, we have the ratio of 1 volunteer to 1 young person, the progress are better.
Yeah.
Volunteers are happy, but the young parents also makes a lot.
How are you measuring that though? Is that through like satisfaction surveys, or is there testing involved, or something like that? Right.
The impact is something we've been working on recently because it is tricky.
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, coming from a marketing background, I can tell you how difficult it is to attribute something to an activity is incredibly difficult. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not the expert in the impact in my charity. There's other people who do that, but we do ask the young people at the beginning, middle, and end of the program to rate themselves.
Yeah.
How do they feel about reading and about writing, and how do they feel about their own confidence? Yeah. And then we ask their parents and we ask their teachers and we ask them, have you seen an improvement?
Yeah.
Or even a change? Not talking about improvement because you don't want to lead them when you ask a question.
Yeah.
Have you seen any changes?
What, like a behavioural change? Yeah.
Confidence. Yeah. So the 3 pillars of literacy parents are literacy, confidence, and perseverance. Because
love it.
If you can read and write, great. But if you don't believe in yourself, or if you're very shy and every time there's a hurdle, you just stop trying, you're not going to go far enough.
Yes.
You're going to be stopped very
Believe in yourself. Push yourself to do it. Yeah.
So we don't just rate reading and writing, but we do because we are a literacy charity. We also rate their confidence level and their perseverance, their ability to bounce back. And we ask this to them. So we ask the young parents to tell how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And we ask parents and teachers. And then we compare, very simple from the beginning to the end of the program. But we also compare that to national data where we can see what the progress in reading age a young person would make in 3 months or a whole year without a program like ours, what type of progress they make and what type of progress our young people make when they are on our program. On the virtual program, I believe, I could be wrong, I might need to double check that, but on a 3 months program, without a program like ours, they will make 1 month's progress on their reading age, but with us, they make 5 months progress.
That's incredible.
So
that's incredible. Yeah, isn't that lovely? I mean, that makes me feel proud. And I'm not even involved. That's incredible. That's really, really good. Yeah. This is why volunteers are so important, right? Because this is the impact that they make. They genuinely change lives. Do you find it difficult to recruit? I imagine because your cause is so impactful and good, it probably is quite easy for you to find people. But now you're kind of like, maybe, I don't know.
It has its challenges, I think, but it's not our program who has specific challenges. Recruiting volunteers at the moment is difficult for everyone.
What do you reckon that is? I've got my views, but what do you think?
I think the last few months, maybe years, it's been a bit gloom in society. The mood is not very positive. And if you're worried about your own social situation, your own paying your bills, you're not going to volunteer because that's not on top of your priorities. If you have to take a second job to pay your bills, you're not going to volunteer, and that's fair enough. So that would be one factor, I think. There's also people don't always see volunteering as something that is accessible to them. So there's a lot of conversation around diversity in the charity sector.
Absolutely.
And diversity in volunteers. And believing that volunteering is for you as well. It's not just an old white person thing that when they're retired. No.
How do you get over that then?
That is a very big challenge. We work with a lot of universities and a lot of students, and our student volunteers are quite diverse compared to people who work.
Are they like international students then, or like
both international and British students?
Okay, yeah.
I think it's also because the type of people who are, let's say, like 25 till like working age, 25 till I don't know 60-ish, who are working but also have time and capacity to volunteer, will probably be wealthier. If you have young families and you have to work and maybe you have a second job and you don't have someone to take care of your children,
your time is so
you won't have time to volunteer. And unfortunately, very often those conditions also fit with, if you're wealthier, you're probably more likely to be white.
This is where we come back to representation, right? You think about the kids that are in your program. Do they fit that profile? Probably not. I would imagine they're...
And that's one very powerful tool, is when your volunteers represent your kids and that they can see themselves and they can see role models in volunteers who look like them, who come from the same background. That would be really powerful. And that's the goal.
Sorry about this question, but what's the answer then?
What's the answer?
Yeah, how do you get like more representation in your volunteers?
I don't have the answer.
I knew you were going to say that.
But I'm part of an EDI in volunteer management, so Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity Forum for volunteer managers, that was initiated by the GLA. Greater London Authority. So it's a group of volunteer managers who come together to try to find solutions, find ways to help each other with those challenges. And we talked about maybe asking for a reference can be a barrier to volunteering. Because if you don't have a job that can provide you that reference, or if you haven't been to university, you don't get a reference. It might not be easy to do a reference. So that could be something to think about.
We see the same thing with Gen Z younger volunteers, is they look at volunteering as a way, because like the job market is such a competitive market at the moment, particularly for people that are recent school leavers and graduates. So it's so competitive. How do you get the edge? And you can get the edge by volunteering and having those additional references and the soft skills that are involved in volunteering. That's, I mean, like, where else are you going to get people management, project management, all of those personal skills?
If you're able to work with a 9-year-old who doesn't want to read, and you get them to read, or you get them to read their text in front of everyone, you've got some skills. You've
got some stories to tell. That's what you've got if you're able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. That group, the EDI, that sounds like a great initiative. And I think like there probably is an answer to the challenge, but there's probably more that we can do as a sector to help us get there. There isn't going to be a silver bullet, right? But but I think talking about it and making sure that the recruitment programs for charities that at least acknowledge that you don't, you should be advertising for volunteers. What you should be doing is segmenting your advertising so you know that you can reach certain groups to show representation of that group, not just using a one-size-fits-all. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. There's a lot around language that you use as well, who could make a volunteer opportunity feel like it's for a certain type of people. In the EDI forum last time, we talked about recruiting trustees, which is a different type of volunteer role. But we were saying how if you put your job ad and you said you have to have experience in leadership, that is reaching out to a very small group of people. But if you say you have been exposed to leadership, or you are interested in gaining experience around leadership, that will open it up. So the language you use also matters very much.
I love that.
And also making your ads, visually visible and accessible for people who have visual impairments, for example, or any neurodiversity you can think of. There are lots of things around that you can do to make before volunteers even join you, make it more accessible and more inclusive already.
Yeah. Neuro-inclusion, neurodiversity are two areas I think are grossly underrepresented in and I don't even mean in volunteer recruitment. I just mean recruitment in general.
Absolutely.
Across the board, I don't feel we make enough, because there are some wonderfully skilled people that might have dyslexia or whatever, ADHD and conditions like that you're going to miss out on. Because you're not willing to bend a little bit when it comes to the marketing of your program and that. You guys do an excellent job when it comes to recruitment. I've seen a lot of your marketing material, your content material, your videos. Rostovai loves working with you, and we're really, really pleased to have you as our customer. How did that start though? Like, at what point were you involved in this as well? Was there a point where it was like, we need to do something about like how we're managing volunteers at the moment?
Yes, so we used another volunteer management system before, and I was talking a bit earlier about the admin workload on the team. And we have very big ambition to grow at the Literacy Pirates. But as I was saying, our volunteers are absolutely part of that growth. We can't grow if we don't have volunteers. So we need more volunteers. Okay, let's recruit more. But that will kind of increase the admin work, the amount of volunteers you have to sign up to training, contacts, and an email.
You can't scale that volunteer recruitment without at least acknowledging the admin work.
And it's also not scalable financially. If every time you get more volunteers, you just get more staff. Like, what the size of the vol team is going to be. If every time you get 10 more volunteers, you get one more vol team member, that's not going to work. So that's why we realized we really need a system that is going to help us cut down on the admin workload. And we went from a system where if someone wanted to book a session, they had to email us
Right.
to a system where they can just go somewhere, see a series of dates, and click the one they want. And if they can cancel, if they need to cancel, they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
If they want to book a training and then their calendar has changed and they have to reschedule, they can do it themselves. We talk less to our volunteers, or at least when we talk to them, we have meaningful conversations.
Yes, not just chasing something.
Exactly. And our inbox is not filled with emails about small things like, how can I do this? Where can I find this?
Yeah.
Can I sign up for this event? Can I cancel this event? There's a lot less of that.
Yeah.
And when people contact us, it's because they have a question that they genuinely need us for.
Yeah.
Or they tell us something that we are interested in. And that has helped a lot.
Yeah. Do you complete that feedback loop as well to say sort of like, thank you for giving your time?
Absolutely.
And like, that's an element that and I'm being honest here, I often don't even bring up on these conversations, and I really should. The rewarding of the volunteer and closing that loop is really important. Like, what do you do there?
So we have badges, physical and digital badge, para-themed, obviously.
On Rostify?
Both, on Rostify and an actual physical badge. So if you do
an actual badge.
An actual badge,
okay.
Yes.
I love my merch. I'm interested.
I don't have one with me. I will show you next time. But we have the same virtually, which means that wherever you volunteer, you're going to get at least 3 badges with us.
Okay.
So the first one is the first session you do. We give you a thank you for volunteering. You're now a literacy parents. You're a crewmate.
Okay.
So that's
and they will have a physical badge given to them.
And
then when they go onto their roster, your literacy profile, they'll see that on there as well.
Thing.
Amazing.
Like, yes,
love it. I love it.
Then the minimum commitment for us is for our volunteers to complete 12 sessions. So when they're halfway through, on 6, they become a Sea Dog. And they get their 6-session Sea Dog badge. So it's another.
I said there was going to be a lot of pirate
films.
Yes,
there is. Not said that many, but there's a lot more. And then when they complete their 12 session, which is their minimum commitments, that's them done everything they said they would do.
Yeah.
They become a Buccaneer.
Yeah, love it.
And they get a Buccaneer badge. And then we get one for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, up to 100. And at 100, you get a certificate signed by the captain, which is the CEO, to say, like, well done, you've done 100 sessions. And we have a good number of volunteers who've done 100 sessions or more. So that's one way we thank our volunteers. That's great.
I love that. Yeah.
We try to do also, we do volunteer socials where we invite them. We are currently organising a virtual book club for our volunteers, because being a literacy charity, we attract people who usually like reading.
Yeah.
So we're going to organise a virtual book club. So we also want to build this community around volunteers to make them feel like you're not just doing your thing and then leaving, you're part of the community.
Yeah.
As a way to say thank you as well.
Just completely unrelated. How do you choose what books and literature?
We haven't started yet, so we haven't picked. But we were wondering really how are we going to pick the books.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to pick a few and do a poll and ask volunteers which book would you like to
I love that.
Like that.
Doing polls and all that. Yeah. Okay.
Because
that's a
I
good
don't
idea.
know what book we should start with.
That's another thing that we can do through Rostify then, right? Put a poll on there, get the word out, find out what people want. Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that, because you can't really choose something without upsetting somebody, and you have to be careful.
Absolutely.
You know, like, and there's some classics that you obviously want them to read. There's certain age levels.
Should we stay pirate themes? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not. We'll see.
Well, there's plenty in the pirate and sea theme category, you know. So
so we'll see what our volunteers feel like. We'll probably give them like a variety of like fictions, non-fictions, maybe something, I don't know, rom-coms or adventure. A few different options, and we'll see what they go for.
Yeah, once you've done Treasure Island and Moby Dick, you're really going to have a think about what you do next.
I'll take suggestions if you have suggestions.
Yeah, okay. You'll get them from me. So I guess I'm kind of interested in, like, if you knew someone that was doing your role but for a different charity and they were discovering that the scaling their program was going to be difficult, what advice would you give somebody looking for a platform? Like, you know,
for us it's been automation.
Okay.
That has been a big factor when we were looking at different volunteer management platforms.
But did you look at your current program and go, okay, we want to digitalize this, so can I recreate this? Or did you look at it the other way and kind of go, well, we don't know if that is the right way of doing it. Maybe we'll bring in a system and that might show us. Do you get what I'm saying? You're either finding a system that mimics what you're doing, or you're getting a system to improve the system that you're doing.
So I think you need both. You can't do one without the other. What we've done is mapping out everything we do. So what our volunteers go through, every steps they will have to do to complete. To become a volunteer and lead session, what does that mean to us? So you've got the first level, what the volunteer does. The second level being like what does the volunteer team does?
Yeah.
And then the third level being, can a software help us with that? Where do we store the data? What do we do with that data? What does it need to be connected with?
Yeah.
And mapping all this has helped us refine our processes, know what we are looking for in a system, and then kind of come up to you guys and say, well, actually, we've got this. Can
Okay,
your
so you
system
did all that beforehand, before you
Yes,
came to
we
us.
did, yeah.
I guess you already had a system in place, right? So you knew
Yeah.
the bits that you could probably go, well, that is working with the older system, so we need to at least make sure that we do that, but we want to scale it out to this. And then you brought that to us.
Yeah.
Was there like a two-way thing here where we kind of went, okay, looking at that, you might also want to do a bit of this? Or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are tools that existed in Rustify that we didn't have before that we used. For example, the training, as I was talking about earlier, the self-serve training where volunteers can just go through the training on their own. We didn't have that options before, and that changed our process. We changed the way volunteers do training because that tool has become available to us. And it wasn't an issue before because that's how we used to do things. But then we arrived at that tool and we thought, oh, actually, because this is available to us, we can use that. Yeah, it's just a lot of ways of like thinking about your own processes, seeing what is available in front of you, and kind of going, where can we link that?
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes you get stuck into just doing the things you do just because that's how you do.
Yeah, right.
Rather than
questioning it.
Exactly, and improving things that you can improve and dropping steps that are not necessary.
Yeah.
Or are not necessary anymore.
Yeah, well, that's what we hope to do as a partner with you guys too, is not just provide you with a platform that just mimics what you're doing, but also hopefully get you guys thinking about what else could you do, or is that even necessary?
Exactly.
Like, is there a way of stripping some stuff out or streamlining it? So in a kind of nutshell, what difference do you think it's made to the organisation? Just like a sort of sweeping statement, me fishing for a quote from you.
Get that quote.
So obvious, aren't I?
I would say our volunteers are going through the pipeline a lot more easily than they used to, and it gives us at the Literacy Pirates a lot more time to have meaningful conversation with our volunteers because we spend less time fixing little things. And that has made a huge difference because it means we have more volunteers in sessions doing the things they need to do and spending less time doing the trainings, doing the criminal background check. Like, that's not the interesting bits. The volunteers come here to volunteer, not to do a training and to spend hours online portal trying to figure out what the next step is. If that is very clear, the volunteers will come to sessions. So I would say that that's what Rustify has helped us with, just making that that journey smooth.
Okay, my last question would be, if there's one thing that you could change about the volunteering sector at the moment, and even if it's something that we've already covered in our chat, what would you change if you could wake up next week and it wouldn't be an issue for volunteering? What would it be?
I would say making volunteering part of what you do in life, like not being a barrier to work and to income, having workplace that facilitated more, and not just people who work in offices, everyone being able to devote time to volunteer because it's part of what society needs.
I love it.
That would be my dream.
It'd just make the world a better place, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would make people more connected to each other.
Yeah.
Because you would be doing your job that brings your income, but you will also be doing work in the community that brings a better community and brings you some...
I think, like, I love that, by the way, but I do think, maybe it is just the UK, I don't know, but I think there is a loss of a sense of community in a lot of areas of the country. Not all of it, and there are some great things happening across the country to try and bring that together. I think time is a massive obstacle, and if more organisations gave their employees a chance to go and volunteer and take part in something, which we are seeing a lot of. I mean, even Rustify, right? We're encouraged to volunteer. We regularly do, not just the customers that we work with, but for any organisations, really. But I see it in friends and family and the organisations that they work with, that they give them time too. So I think that there's hope in what you're...
There is hope. It's happening more. Yeah. But it is happening in organisation where the people who work there already kind of have the means to volunteer. And it would be amazing if it could be available for
anybody.
Everyone.
You're so right. That's the representation element again. Thank you very much for popping in and talking to us. You've got a great cause. It's no wonder that they saw you at the House of Lords and brought you in, to be honest, because your cause is definitely one that we love speaking about. We love what you guys do. Yeah, thank you very much for being involved in this. Thanks so much for listening to the Engaged Volunteer podcast. Join us next time as we continue our journey through the world of volunteering. Until then, stay engaged and keep making a difference to your community.